The sun had just started rising, casting a soft golden light across the quiet streets. Leah rubbed her tired eyes as she locked her apartment door. She had worked a long night shift at the hospital, caring for patients who barely slept. Her back ached, her feet were sore, but her heart felt light because today was different. Today she was finally taking a short trip to visit her sister after almost 2 years. She dragged her small suitcase down the stairs and smiled to herself. It wasn't some fancy vacation, just a few days away to rest, talk, laugh, and maybe sleep without alarms or late-night calls from work. For someone who spent her days taking care of others, this little break felt like a small miracle. On her way to the airport, she stopped by a small cafe near the bus stop. The smell of fresh coffee filled the air. She ordered her favorite cup and a simple sandwich, then sat by the window. Outside, the morning city was coming alive. People rushing to work, taxis honking, a newspaper boy shouting headlines. For a moment, she forgot her exhaustion. As she finished her coffee, a woman nearby dropped her grocery bag and fruits rolled onto the sidewalk. Without thinking, Leah got up, helped pick them up, and smiled at the woman who looked relieved. "Thank you, dear," the woman said. Leah just nodded and smiled, brushing it off like it was nothing. She wasn't the kind of person who could just watch someone struggle. By the time she reached the airport, her phone showed she still had over an hour before her flight. She checked in smoothly, dropped her bag, and found her gate. The airport was busy, people everywhere, some talking loudly on phones, others half asleep on seats. She sat down, plugged in her earphones, and started scrolling through pictures of her sister and nieces, smiling softly. A few seats away, an older man struggled with a large suitcase. He looked well-dressed but weak, maybe in his late 70s. His hand trembled slightly as he tried to lift the bag onto a seat. A few people glanced at him but quickly looked away, pretending not to see. Leah noticed how his face tightened with pain when he tried to move the luggage again. She hesitated for a second. Her boarding time was close, and she didn't want to take any risks. But her conscience wouldn't let her ignore it. She stood up, walked over, and said kindly, "Sir, do you need help with that?" The old man looked up surprised. "Oh dear, I didn't want to bother anyone," he said softly. "It's no bother," Leah replied, smiling as she lifted the bag onto the seat easily. "Where are you headed?" He smiled faintly. "Just a short trip to visit my son. These airports get more confusing every year." Leah chuckled. "You're not wrong about that." She looked at his boarding pass and realized his gate was far from where he stood. "You're actually in the wrong section, sir. Let me walk you to your gate before I board mine." He looked embarrassed but grateful. "You're very kind, miss. Most people these days don't have time for strangers." Leah just shrugged. "We all need a little help sometimes." She took his bag and slowly walked with him down the long hallway. The man moved carefully with his walking stick, pausing every few minutes. Leah made small talk, asking about his family and his trip. He told her he had built a business from scratch when he was young, but now preferred quiet days and family dinners. His voice carried both pride and weariness. When they finally reached his gate, the boarding line had already formed. Leah smiled. "Here you go, sir. You should be all set now." He looked at her warmly. "You've done more than enough, young lady. I don't even know your name." "It's Leah," she replied. "Leah," he repeated slowly, like he was memorizing it. "Thank you. You've made an old man's day brighter." She gave a small wave, checked her watch, and hurried back toward her own gate. Her heart felt good. That simple act of kindness gave her a sense of peace. But when she reached her gate, the scene froze her in place. The door was closed. The screen above now flashed "Flight closed, departed." Her stomach dropped. She rushed to the counter, slightly out of breath. "Excuse me, my flight to Brookdale. Please tell me it hasn't left yet," she said anxiously. The airline staff looked at her with polite detachment. "I'm sorry, ma'am. The boarding gate closed 10 minutes ago. I was here. I just stepped away for a few minutes," Leah tried to explain. "There was an elderly man who needed help. The staff member raised a hand slightly, her tone still cold. "I understand, ma'am, but once the gate closes, we can't reopen it. You'll have to rebook another flight at the service desk." Leah stood there in disbelief. She wanted to argue but could see it wouldn't help. The staff member had already turned to the next passenger. Slowly, she stepped aside and sank onto a bench nearby. She looked out the large airport window, watching as the plane she was supposed to be on rolled down the runway. Her chest felt heavy. This was supposed to be her relaxing trip, her short escape from endless work. Now it was gone, just like that. She pressed her lips together, fighting the frustration that built up inside her. She had always believed doing good things would bring good back somehow. But right now it didn't feel that way. After a few moments, she sighed, grabbed her bag, and started walking toward the help desk. The line was long, and by the time it was her turn, she was drained. The woman behind the counter looked tired and uninterested. "How can I help you?" she asked flatly. "I missed my flight," Leah said quietly. "Is there any way to rebook without paying the full fee?" "It wasn't my fault. I was helping someone." The woman typed something on her keyboard and shook her head. "The policy requires a rebooking fee. The next available flight is in 4 hours." Leah rubbed her forehead. 4 hours, she whispered, disappointed. "And how much is the fee?" The woman told her the amount. It wasn't impossible to pay, but it would take a big chunk out of her savings. She hesitated, then gave a tired nod. "Okay, I'll do it." After the payment, she sat down again near a window. She stared blankly at the runway where planes came and went one after another. Her heart still felt heavy, not because of the money or the weight, but because she wondered if she'd done the right thing. Was kindness always supposed to cost so much? Just as she was lost in thought, a familiar voice spoke behind her. "Miss Leah?" She turned around, startled. It was the old man she had helped earlier. He was smiling, holding his hat in one hand. "Oh, you made it on your flight, right?" she asked, trying to hide her disappointment. He chuckled softly. "Actually, no. I decided to wait. I wanted to thank you properly." Leah blinked. "You didn't have to do that." He sat beside her, breathing slowly. "You remind me of my late wife," he said suddenly. "She was just like you, always stopping to help others even when it cost her something." Leah smiled sadly. "That's very kind of you to say. I'm just trying to do what feels right." He studied her for a moment and then asked, "Did you miss your flight because of me?" Leah hesitated, not wanting to make him feel guilty. "It's fine," she said softly. "I'll catch the next one." The old man didn't seem convinced. "Let me help you then." She laughed lightly. "Oh no, please don't worry about that. I'm fine. I just need to wait a bit." He gave a small smile. "You'll forgive an old man for not taking no for an answer." Before Leah could respond, he stood up and slowly walked toward a nearby airline staff member. She watched as they spoke for a moment. The worker suddenly straightened up, nodding quickly before hurrying away. Leah looked around, confused. The old man returned and sat beside her again, calm and quiet. "Just wait a few minutes," he said with a wink. She didn't understand what was happening, but something about his calmness made her stay seated. A few minutes later, a woman in a Navy uniform approached her. "Ma'am, please come with me. Your ticket has been reissued for the next flight. No fee required." Leah blinked in surprise. "What, but how?" The woman smiled politely. "Your situation has been reviewed. Everything's been taken care of." Leah turned to the old man, who just smiled back warmly. "See, good things come back around eventually," he said softly. Leah was speechless. She thanked him again, not realizing that the man she had helped wasn't just any passenger, but someone whose kindness would soon change her life in ways she never expected. She didn't know it yet, but missing that flight was the best thing that could have ever happened to her. Leah sat quietly in the waiting area, still trying to understand what had just happened. Just a few minutes ago, she was heartbroken over missing her flight. Now everything had suddenly changed. The same airline staff that had refused to help her earlier was now being overly polite. She didn't know what to think. The woman in uniform returned and handed Leah a new boarding pass. "Your flight is scheduled in 1 hour," she said kindly. "Please wait near gate 12. You've also been upgraded to a better seat." Leah blinked in surprise. "Upgraded? Are you sure? There must be a mistake." The staff smiled. "No mistake, ma'am. It's all arranged." Leah looked toward the old man, confused but grateful. "Did you do this?" she asked softly. He gave a little smile. "Let's just say I know a few people around here," he replied with a small chuckle. She laughed lightly. "You didn't have to do all that. I only did what anyone should do." He looked at her with kind eyes. "You'd be surprised how few people think that way these days." They sat together, waiting for the next flight. The old man had a calm, gentle presence, the kind that made people around him feel at ease. Leah, who usually avoided small talk after long work shifts, found herself opening up naturally. He asked about her work, and she told him she was a nurse. She shared a few simple stories about helping patients, some funny, some sad. The old man listened closely, nodding and smiling, his eyes thoughtful. "You must see so much every day," he said quietly. Leah sighed. "Yes, sometimes it's heavy, but helping people, it gives my life meaning. Even when I'm tired, it feels worth it." He nodded slowly. "The world needs more people like you, Leah. People who still care." She looked at him and smiled. "Thank you. That means a lot coming from you." After a moment of silence, he leaned back in his chair. "You remind me of someone I used to know. My wife, she was a nurse too, always putting others before herself." Leah smiled gently. "She sounds like a good woman." He looked away, his voice turning soft. "She was the best thing that ever happened to me." For a moment, they both sat quietly. Leah didn't know what to say. The old man's eyes had a faraway look, filled with memories that words couldn't describe. After a few minutes, an airline staff member walked up to them and spoke to the old man politely. "Sir, we've prepared your special boarding. We're ready when you are." Leah looked at him curiously. "Special boarding?" she asked. He chuckled lightly. Nothing fancy. Just a small arrangement for people my age." Leah smiled. "You've really got some connections here." He just nodded with a knowing smile, his eyes twinkling like he knew something she didn't. "Come with me, Leah," he said after a pause. "I'd like to show you something before your flight." She hesitated. "I don't want to get in trouble." "My gate is that way," he pointed ahead. "Don't worry, it won't take long. Trust me." Something about his calm tone made her agree. She followed him down a quieter hallway, guided by the staff member who walked slightly ahead. The old man moved slowly, but his steps were sure. After a few minutes, they reached a lounge area unlike anything Leah had seen before. It was elegant but peaceful. Soft lighting, quiet music, and smiling staff who greeted the old man respectfully. "Welcome back, sir," one of them said warmly. Leah's eyebrows lifted. She whispered, "You come here often, huh?" The old man smiled. "Sometimes." They sat down and a waiter brought them drinks. Leah sipped hers quietly, still unsure why she was there. The old man looked at her kindly. "You missed your flight because you helped someone who couldn't manage alone. That says a lot about who you are. Most people would have walked away." Leah shrugged. "I just did what I thought was right. It wasn't a big deal," he chuckled. "You say that now, but for people like me, it's not so small. When you get older, you start noticing who really sees you. Most people see through you like you're invisible." Leah felt a pang in her chest. She understood what he meant. She had seen that same look in some of her older patients, grateful just because someone talked to them kindly. The old man reached into his pocket and pulled out a small silver pen. It looked old but well kept. "My wife used to say kindness is a rare currency. It costs you little but gives you back a fortune when you least expect it," he said softly, turning the pen in his hands. Leah smiled at his words. "She was a wise woman." He nodded slowly. "She was. And I see that same spirit in you." Before Leah could respond, another staff member approached them. "Sir, your private flight is ready whenever you are," she said respectfully. Leah blinked. "Private flight?" The old man smiled faintly. "Yes, just a small one." She laughed nervously. "Wow, you weren't joking about knowing people." He leaned forward slightly. "Leah, where are you headed again?" "To Brookdale," she replied. "To visit my sister." He thought for a second and said, "That's not far from where I'm going. How about you come with me? I can drop you off directly. It'll be quicker and more comfortable." Leah's eyes widened. "Wait, what? I can't just take a private flight with you." "That's too much," he chuckled. "You helped me without expecting anything. Let me return the favor." Leah shook her head quickly. "I appreciate it really, but I can't accept something like that." He smiled gently. "You can and you should. Think of it as a thank you gift." The airline manager standing nearby spoke up politely. "Ma'am, everything has been arranged. If you're comfortable, you may join the flight. Your bags will be transferred." Leah looked from one face to another, still unsure. Everything felt unreal, but something in the old man's warm expression told her she could trust him. "Okay," she said softly. "If you're sure it's okay." The old man smiled. "It's more than okay." A car took them to a quiet area of the airport where a sleek private jet waited. Leah had only seen planes like that on TV. She hesitated for a moment before climbing the small staircase behind the old man. Inside, everything looked cozy and peaceful. Plush seats, soft lights, and the faint hum of calm music. She sat across from him, still trying to process everything. "This feels unreal," she said with a nervous laugh. He smiled. "Sometimes life surprises us when we least expect it." As the plane prepared for takeoff, Leah looked out the window. The city lights shimmered below, and for the first time that day, she felt her shoulders relax. "So," she said curiously, "are you going to tell me who you really are now?" The old man smiled knowingly. "You'll know soon enough." Leah raised an eyebrow playfully. "That sounds mysterious," he chuckled softly. "Maybe it is. But for now, just sit back and enjoy the flight. You've earned it." She leaned back, smiling to herself. It felt strange to be sitting on a private jet after missing a regular flight just hours ago. Life had turned in a completely unexpected direction. As the plane took off smoothly, Leah closed her eyes for a moment. The soft sound of the engines, the gentle rocking, and the quiet company of the kind old man felt oddly peaceful. He looked at her and said quietly, "You know, Leah, sometimes the best journeys begin when you think everything has gone wrong." She turned to him and smiled softly. "Maybe you're right." He gave a slow nod, his eyes full of wisdom. "The truth is, most people rush through life chasing the next thing. But sometimes, missing one flight can lead you to something far greater." Leah didn't understand the full meaning of his words yet. She just thought he was being thoughtful and wise. But deep inside, something told her that this trip, this strange, unexpected twist of fate, was going to change her life in a way she couldn't yet imagine. The plane continued to rise higher above the clouds, the world below fading into soft colors of dusk. Leah looked out the window one more time, whispering to herself, maybe missing that flight wasn't such a bad thing after all. The old man smiled quietly beside her, saying nothing more. But the look in his eyes said he already knew how everything would unfold. Leah had no idea who he really was or how powerful his gratitude could be. All she knew was that for the first time in a long while, she felt at peace, like she was exactly where she was meant to be. And as the plane soared into the sky, she couldn't help but wonder what surprises life still had waiting for her when they landed. The plane flew quietly through the clouds, its engines humming softly like a lullaby. Leah sat near the window, staring outside. The sunset painted the sky in soft shades of gold and pink, and the world below looked small and peaceful. She still couldn't believe what was happening. Just that morning, she had been rushing to catch a regular flight after a long shift. Now she was sitting inside a private jet beside the same old man she had helped at the airport. The old man leaned back in his seat, reading a newspaper. Every now and then he looked out the window with a calm smile. Leah kept wondering who he really was. There was something about the way everyone treated him, with respect and quiet admiration, that made her curious. Finally, she couldn't hold it in any longer. "Can I ask you something?" she said, turning toward him. He looked up, smiling warmly. "Of course, Leah, ask me anything." "Who exactly are you?" she asked softly. "I mean, you don't seem like an ordinary passenger. Everyone at the airport knew you. Even the manager seemed nervous around you." The old man chuckled quietly. "You noticed that, huh?" She nodded. It was kind of hard not to. He smiled but didn't answer immediately. Instead, he folded his newspaper carefully and placed it on the table in front of him. "I suppose it's fair that you're curious. But before I tell you, promise me one thing." Leah tilted her head slightly. "What's that?" "Promise me that no matter what you find out, you'll still see me as the same old man you helped at the airport. Not someone special, not someone important, just an old man who needed a kind hand." Leah smiled softly. "I promise," he nodded. "Good." There was a short silence before he spoke again, his voice calm and thoughtful. "My name is Walter Thompson. I started this airline about 40 years ago." Leah blinked, unsure if she had heard correctly. "Wait, you own this airline?" He nodded gently. "Yes, or at least I did. I've stepped down from most of the day-to-day work now. My son runs it. I still travel sometimes to see how things are going, talk to staff, and meet passengers. I like to see how people are treated when they don't know who's watching." Leah's mouth fell open slightly. She was stunned. The kind old man she had helped at the gate wasn't just any traveler. He owned the airline she had missed her flight on. I don't even know what to say," she whispered. He chuckled softly. "You don't need to say anything." You didn't help me because of who I was. You helped me because you're kind. That means more to me than you can imagine. Leah sat quietly for a few moments, still processing everything. So when you said you'd take care of it at the airport, he smiled. Let's just say it's easier to make calls when your name is on the company sign. Leah laughed nervously, shaking her head. This is unbelievable. I missed my flight and now I'm sitting on a private jet with the owner of the airline. Life really is full of surprises, he nodded. It certainly is. For a while they both sat quietly, sipping the tea a flight attendant brought them. The cabin was peaceful, and the orange glow from the sunset filled the space with warmth. Leah couldn't help but ask, "Why were you traveling alone? Don't you usually have people with you?" The old man looked thoughtful. I used to, but sometimes I like to travel alone. It reminds me of the early days, when this company was just an idea and I'd go from city to city trying to make it real. Back then it wasn't about power or money. It was about people. I wanted everyone, no matter who they were, to be treated with respect when they flew. Leah listened closely. His voice carried years of stories and struggles. He continued softly, "But as companies grow, sometimes they lose that human touch. I like to see things for myself now and then. I dress simply, walk through airports like any other passenger and see how people treat each other. You'd be surprised how many people ignore those who need help." Leah felt a strange mix of admiration and sadness. That's actually really smart, but also kind of sad. He nodded slowly. It is. That's why people like you give me hope. Leah blushed a little. I was just doing what anyone should do. He smiled gently. And yet so few actually do it. The plane flew higher and the stars began to appear outside the window. The world below faded into darkness, leaving only the glow of city lights in the distance. Leah leaned back, thinking about everything that had happened since the morning. You know, she said softly, I almost cried when they closed the gate. I was so angry at myself. I kept thinking maybe I should have minded my own business. The old man looked at her seriously. Never regret kindness, Leah. It might make your journey longer, but it'll always take you to the right place. His words sank deep into her heart. She smiled faintly, staring at the stars. You sound like someone who's seen a lot. He nodded. I've seen success, failure, loss, love. And one thing I've learned is that life rewards genuine hearts. Maybe not always in the way you expect, but it finds a way. Leah looked at him with quiet admiration. I think I needed to hear that today. He gave a small smile. Then I'm glad we met. A few hours later, the plane began to descend toward Brookdale. The city lights sparkled below like scattered jewels. Leah fastened her seatbelt, still amazed by how differently her day had turned out. Before landing, the old man turned to her. You said you're visiting your sister, right? She nodded. Yes, she's been asking me to come for months. I just kept putting it off because of work. He smiled knowingly. Work has a way of keeping us from what matters most. But family, that's where we find balance. Leah smiled. You sound like someone who values family deeply. He paused for a moment. I do. I lost my wife years ago. My son and I didn't always see eye to eye. But we've learned to meet in the middle. Life's too short to stay distant from the people we love. Leah nodded, feeling a lump in her throat. She didn't know why. But there was something so real about his words that it touched her heart. As the plane landed smoothly, Leah looked out the window. She could see the lights of the small airport below. She turned to the old man and said sincerely, Thank you for this. I don't even know how to repay you. He smiled warmly. You already did long before you knew who I was. She shook her head softly, her eyes glistening. You don't understand. I thought I had lost everything when I missed that flight. But now, it feels like I gained something far more important. He reached out gently and patted her hand. That's the beauty of life, Leah. Sometimes what feels like a setback is just a new beginning. When the plane stopped, the staff quickly opened the door. The night air felt cool and fresh. Leah stood at the door for a moment, looking back at the old man. Will I ever see you again? She asked. He smiled. I believe we meet people for a reason, Leah. Maybe our paths will cross again. She gave a small smile. I hope so. As she stepped down from the plane, she felt a strange sense of peace. The night was quiet, and the stars seemed to shine brighter than usual. She took a deep breath and smiled to herself. A car was waiting to take her to her sister's house. Before getting in, she looked back one more time. The old man was still standing at the top of the stairs, waving gently. She waved back, her heart full of gratitude. On the ride to her sister's house, she couldn't stop thinking about him, about how one small act of kindness had led to something so extraordinary. She realized that sometimes life tests you by making you choose between convenience and compassion, and that day she had chosen compassion, and it had brought her to a place she never expected. By the time she reached her sister's home, she was smiling to herself. She knew she would never forget this day. It started with exhaustion and frustration, but it ended with hope, gratitude, and the beginning of a friendship that would change her view of life forever. As she lay in bed that night, Leah whispered softly, "Thank you, God, for letting me miss that flight." She didn't know what the future held, but she felt certain of one thing: kindness always finds its way back, even when you least expect it. The plane soared quietly through the clouds, and the soft hum of the engines filled the air. Leah sat across from the old man, still trying to understand everything that was happening. Just a few hours ago, she was sitting on a cold airport bench, frustrated because she had missed her flight. Now she was in a private jet, being treated like an honored guest. The old man smiled kindly at her as the flight attendant served them drinks and light snacks. He looked relaxed, his gentle eyes watching the sky outside, and Leah couldn't help but wonder what kind of life he must have lived to own an entire airline. After a few minutes of silence, he turned to her and said, "You must be wondering who I really am." Leah smiled nervously and nodded. He chuckled softly, then said, "My name is Mr. Thompson. I'm the founder and current chairman of this airline." Leah's mouth fell slightly open. She had heard the name before. It was written on the side of planes, on company buildings, even mentioned in news articles. She blinked a few times, not sure if she had heard him correctly. "You own this airline?" she asked in disbelief. He nodded, taking a slow sip of his tea. "Yes, I started it a long time ago, back when I was still a young man. Things were much harder back then. I had nothing but a small team, a dream, and a promise I made to my wife before she passed away." His eyes softened as he spoke. She loved to travel, but once when she fell ill, an airline refused to let her board because of her condition. That broke my heart. I wanted to build a company that would treat people with kindness, not just money in their pockets. Leah listened quietly, her heart touched by his words. He continued, "Now that I'm old, I sometimes travel like this and without telling anyone who I am. I do it to see how people behave when they don't know they're being watched. Most just walk by, too busy to notice an old man struggling with a bag. But you stopped. You didn't think about what you'd lose, you just helped." Leah smiled faintly and said, "I didn't do it expecting anything. You just looked like you needed a hand." Mr. Thompson nodded slowly, and that's exactly what kindness is, doing something without expecting a reward. He leaned back, closing his eyes for a moment. "You remind me of my wife." She was the same, always putting others first. Leah looked out the window. The clouds looked like soft cotton fields beneath them. Her mind drifted to her job at the hospital, the long hours, the endless patience, and how tired she sometimes felt. Still, she always believed in doing her best for people. Maybe that was why she had stopped for him. Something about helping others simply felt right. Mr. Thompson's voice pulled her back. "You said you're a nurse, right?" She nodded. "That's one of the hardest and most important jobs in the world. You see the pain of others every day and still find the strength to smile." Leah smiled shyly. "It's not easy, but it's rewarding. Sometimes people forget to say thank you, but when you see them recover, that's enough." He looked at her warmly. "You know, people like you keep this world from falling apart. Kindness is rare these days. Everyone is rushing, chasing money or their next destination. But you missed your own flight to help an old man you didn't even know. That tells me everything about your heart." Leah felt her throat tighten. No one had ever spoken to her like that before. She didn't think much of what she did. It was just instinct. But hearing it from him made her feel seen, truly seen, in a way that went deeper than words. The old man then reached into his small bag and pulled out a little black notebook. It looked worn, filled with pages covered in neat handwriting. He flipped it open and wrote something down carefully. "I like to keep a record of people who restore my faith in humanity," he said. "And today I'm adding your name." Leah laughed softly, unsure of what to say. They spent the next hour talking. He told her stories about how he started with one plane, how he faced failure after failure, and how he never gave up because he believed his wife was watching over him. Leah shared stories from her hospital, funny patients, emotional moments, and little victories. The old man listened with real interest, laughing at her jokes, nodding at her struggles, and offering bits of wisdom in between. As the plane began to descend, the old man looked thoughtful. "Leah," he said softly, "I want to give you something, not because you asked for it, but because you've earned it." She shook her head quickly. "Oh no, sir, please. You don't have to give me anything. I just helped because—" He raised his hand gently. "Let me finish." His tone was kind but firm. "You've reminded me that goodness still exists, so I want to honor that. From today, you will have a lifetime pass to fly with my airline anywhere you wish at any time. No charges, no restrictions." Leah stared at him in disbelief. "I can't accept that." "It's too much," he smiled. "To me, it's not too much. You see, this airline was built to reward kindness, and what better way to show that kindness matters than to give back to someone who truly lives it?" Tears welled up in Leah's eyes. "Thank you," she whispered, her voice trembling. "I don't even know what to say." Mr. Thompson smiled. "Just promise me one thing, never stop being the way you are. Keep helping people even when the world doesn't notice, because every time you do, you remind people like me that there's still hope in humanity." The flight attendant came by to inform them that they were about to land. Leah fastened her seatbelt, her heart still racing with emotion. As the plane descended through the clouds, sunlight flooded through the windows, casting a soft golden glow over everything. It felt almost symbolic, like life itself was shining a gentle light on her act of kindness. When the jet touched down, the old man stood up slowly. Leah helped him with his bag again, even though she knew he could probably afford 10 assistants. He smiled, amused. "You really don't stop helping, do you?" He joked. She laughed. "Old habits," she replied. As they walked toward the exit, a group of airline staff was waiting. They all greeted the old man respectfully, clearly recognizing who he was. But Leah noticed how he still carried himself humbly, thanking each person by name. That told her everything she needed to know about the kind of man he was. Before they parted, he turned to her and said, "There's one more thing. I'm also making a donation to your hospital in your name. It will help improve the emergency department, maybe buy better equipment or support more nurses like you." Leah was speechless. "You're doing all this just because I helped you?" she asked softly. Mr. Thompson nodded. "No," he said. "I'm doing it because your kindness reminded me of something I almost forgot, that humanity still has light left in it. You didn't just help me reach my gate that day. You helped me remember why I built all of this in the first place." Leah felt tears streaming down her cheeks, but this time they were tears of joy. She thanked him sincerely, and he gently patted her shoulder. "Now go enjoy your trip," he said with a warm smile. "You've earned it." As she walked away toward the arrivals area, Leah turned back one last time. The old man was standing there, waving with that same gentle smile. She waved back, feeling a warmth in her chest she couldn't describe. For the first time in a long while, she realized that the world still had beautiful surprises, and sometimes, one small act of kindness could change everything, not just for one person, but for everyone it touched.